fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to row-wide facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The Bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Welcome back to the Bullvine podcast, where we cut through dairy industry noise to get you the insights that actually matter for your operation. Today, we are not talking about marginal gains. We are talking about the difference between staying viable and, frankly, competitive extinction. This deep dive is about the single biggest hidden opportunity on your farm.
And today, we're diving deep into a feature piece that's been generating some serious buzz. This one's got layers and some surprises that are, they're going to make farmers rethink how they've been approaching hoof health management, especially those chasing that magic cost number.
That number, that's the $337 per case figure, which is what the University of Wisconsin published in their 2024 research. It's become the industry shorthand, right? The accepted benchmark for the cost of a lame cow. But our stack of sources today doesn't just refine that number. They show why relying on it is, well, fundamentally incomplete and, to be honest, utterly dangerous to your bottom line. It obscures the true potential of elite hoof management.
I agree completely. For the farmer listening right now, let's set the stakes using real-world data. If you run a 1,000 cow dairy and you're operating at the industry average, which is about a 20% lameness rate, based only on those direct treatment costs, the medicine, the time, the trimmer bills, you are hemorrhaging $67,400 annually.
That's a straight-up drain, a measurable one.
For sure. But the article we're analyzing argues that drain is just the starting point. The real competitive difference, the gap between the top 20% of dairies and the bottom 80%, is the difference between capturing $348,000 in annual value and being competitively obsolete in the next few years.
Think about that, $348,000. We're talking about a massive competitive difference annually, and it's all driven by how you manage your cow's feet. This isn't just about applying a block faster. It's about optimizing the entire biological and managerial system. And we are going to challenge two major industry assumptions that underpin this massive disparity.
The first one is the sacred cow of trimming, pun intended. We are diving into when the absolute best, most profitable time to trim is, and the data says the traditional protocol, trimming at fresh check, is fundamentally wrong.
Absolutely. We will prove why trimming at 3 to 4 weeks post-calving is actively costing you money. And the second challenge is even tougher for those who've invested in staff. We have to discuss the cost of poor training for in-house trimming staff. The data is shocking. Inadequate training is proven to be significantly more expensive than just sticking with a professional trimmer, even if you hate the costs. That is a huge liability that has to be addressed immediately. That's it up.
Okay, let's start by contextualizing the problem. We established that the $67,400 annual direct cost for a 1,000 cow operation at 20% lameness is the tip of the iceberg. If you manage to reduce lameness from 20% down to 10%, you immediately save about $34,000 in direct costs. Vet bills, labor time, medication, that's a decent return on investment, right? But if $34,000 is truly just the tip as a producer, I need to know where the massive $348,000 in captured value is coming from. Because when I talk to my nutritionist or my vet, we're talking about milk components and feed costs. Where is this huge financial lever hiding? The sources suggest it's not hidden at all. It's simply ignored in the standard lameness calculation.
It's ignored because it involves looking at the systemic performance of the cow, not just the foot. The first and arguably most important leak being fixed in low lameness herds is longevity. This is the key metric. High lameness herds average just 2.8 lactations before they are involuntarily culled. They're just not profitable enough to sustain.
Wait, I have to stop you there. 2.8 lactations. That means those cows haven't even paid off their heifer development costs before they're gone. That is a massive sunk cost.
Precisely. Now, contrast that with low lameness herds, so those consistently achieving 10% lameness or less. They hit an average of 4.8 lactations. That is a 71% improvement in productive life. And this data is robust. It's documented by institutions like Cornell's Pro-Dairy program. When you can keep a good cow for 2 additional highly profitable lactations, you fundamentally change your entire cost structure.
Okay, so I'm translating this to the real world. A replacement heifer costs, roughly $2,000 to $2,500 to raise from birth to first freshening? If my cows are lasting an extra 2 years, I am reducing my annual replacement rate drastically. Instead of having to bring in 30% replacements a year, I might only need 18%.
And that leads directly to the core of the $348,000 opportunity, replacement savings. The need to raise or buy replacement cows is the single largest overhead cost for many operations. The article estimates potentially $280,000 annually for a 1,000 cow operation can be captured, simply by drastically reducing forced culls due to lameness. You're keeping your most productive assets longer, you are increasing the average age of the herd, and boosting overall genetic efficiency because you are only culling the cows you want to cull, not the cows you have to cull.
That replacement figure of $280,000, I mean, that is a staggering realization. For too long, we've treated lameness as a painful but, unavoidable maintenance cost, not a system failure that prematurely terminates our best assets. But it goes beyond just staying alive, right? It impacts performance while the cow is still in the herd.
Oh, absolutely. And the second major factor here is reproduction. Lameness and reproductive performance are inextricably linked because pain and systemic inflammation. They elevate cortisol, which interferes with the delicate hormonal balance required for a successful conception. The University of Minnesota data shows that 21-day pregnancy rates climb from a challenging 18% in high lameness herds to an extremely competitive 26% in low lameness herds.
A shift from 18% to 26% on a 21-day preg rate. That's a colossal difference. That means you are getting cows bred much faster, you're reducing days open, tightening your calving window, and stabilizing your milk production curve across the year. The efficiency gain in the parlor alone, just by having a consistent supply of cows in the right stages of lactation, is immense. It moves you from reacting to reproductive problems to proactively managing your inventory flow.
And finally, there is the simplest benefit: feed efficiency. Michigan State research points to an 8% gain just from normalized eating patterns. If a cow's foot hurts, she changes her behavior. She stands less, she walks less to the bunk. And when she is at the bunk, she spends less time feeding or she shifts her weight, which disrupts her rumination cycle. Getting her comfortable ensures she eats the right amount at the right time, maximizing feed conversion. That 8% efficiency gain is pure profit, flowing straight to the bottom line year after year.
So when we put it all together, that $34,000 in direct treatment savings is almost irrelevant noise compared to the $348,000 in captured value, 90% of which is driven by longevity, reproduction, and feed efficiency. This is why the competitive gap is widening. If your neighbor implements these controls, they are capturing almost $350,000 in value that you are leaving on the table. It means they will outlast you, regardless of what the milk price is doing. Lameness management is now a strategic pillar of operational competitiveness.
It is the definitive argument. Lameness management is not a cost center. It is the integrated system that delivers a profound competitive advantage.
All right, so let's bring this analysis back down to the barn floor.
Right.
What are most farmers doing right now? They're using the professional contract model. They bring in a quality trimmer, usually quarterly. For a 1,500 cow operation, that usually means a contract costing about $75,000 a year. It promises consistent quality, it minimizes farm labor management, and it ensures expertise. On paper, it sounds like the safest option.
It does sound simple, but here is where the contrarian analysis of the sources hits hard. The real issue isn't the cost of that $75,000 contract, it's the lack of immediacy. The real problem is the availability of the service. Professional trimmers, especially the good ones who use gold standard methods, are massively overburdened. In dairy-intensive regions like the Midwest or the valleys of California, they are booked out 3 to 4 months. They're turning away clients, or they are squeezing in work, which compromises quality.
Wait, so you're telling me that the very model we rely on for consistent quality is now a system that actively creates massive financial losses because of delay? It's a paradox of success.
Precisely. This is the cost of delay. The research is brutally clear. Delaying treatment costs $180 per affected cow per day in lost production. Think about that compounding effect, you. If your cow shows clinical signs of lameness on a Tuesday, And your professional trimmer, who you trust implicitly, can't make it for 3 weeks? That's 21 days of delay. You have lost over $3,780 on that single cow before the trimmer has even gotten his chute set up.
Wow. That quickly eclipses the supposed $337 treatment cost and the $75,000 contract fee combined. The operational cost of waiting 3 weeks is catastrophic. We are essentially losing the entire value of the trim and then some, just waiting for the professional to show up. That is a staggering indictment of the pure professional contract model when you apply it in today's high-pressure, tight-labored dairy market.
Let's break down the 3 management models compared in the sources, using that 1,500 cow operation as our standard example. The professional model offers that guaranteed expert technique, but the critical pitfall is the 3 to 4 month delay risk, translating to that crippling $180 per cow loss per day. There is zero emergency response capability.
Then you have the in-house program. And we all love the idea of control and immediate response. Lower direct costs, maybe $35,000 a year for salary and materials, and you have instant response capability. But here's the reality I've lived. You need to invest $15,000 to $30,000 in quality equipment, and the failure rate is astronomically high when staff are pulled away for other, seemingly more urgent tasks. That critical success factor the article points out, protected time 1 to 2 hours daily that cannot be interrupted. That's almost impossible to maintain on most dairies. We're always short-staffed. And the trimmer is often the most capable guy, so he gets pulled to fix the feed mixer or help with calving. It's a management failure, not a trimming failure.
Which brings us to what the sources strongly argue is the sustainable winner, the hybrid model. It costs slightly less than the full professional contract, around $62,700 per year for that 1,500 cow operation. It combines a professional trimmer for scheduled maintenance and complex systemic cases, with trained in-house staff who can provide immediate 24-hour emergency response.
And what's fascinating here is how the return on investment is proven through that immediacy. Dr. Gerard Kramer's research at the University of Minnesota specifically supports this, showing that each 24-hour reduction in treatment response time saves approximately $180 per case. So that $62,700 isn't an expenditure, it's an investment in speed. When your in-house staff can apply a block immediately on Tuesday afternoon instead of waiting weeks for the contractor, that's where you capture that value and stop the production clock from running.
The hybrid model solves the core fatal flaw of the professional model, which is the delay, without inheriting the massive liability pitfalls of the pure in-house model, poor technique and lack of protected time. It requires strong management coordination, but the ROI measured by reducing those $180 a day losses is immediate and substantial. Now, if we are talking about contrarian analysis, this next segment is a complete pivot from what most farmers, including myself, have practiced for decades. This is the timing revolution, and it affects every single cow, not just the lame ones.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get my head around this one. For generations, the protocol has been clear. Trim a fresh check. The cow's in the chute anyway, usually 3 to 4 weeks post-calving. Get done before she hits peak milk. It's preventative maintenance.
And according to converging research from Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Cornell, that traditional protocol is actively costing you money. The data overwhelmingly supports shifting routine trimming protocols to after 110 days in milk.
Why 110 dim? We should probably define dim for our listeners' days in milk. It's the standard metric for tracking the lactation cycle. But structurally, doesn't the hoof need addressing early when the hoof horn growth is at its most vulnerable? What biological magic happens at 110 dim that suddenly makes the cow ready?
It's not magic, it's the timing of metabolic recovery. And the economic breakdown is staggering. If you trim before a 110 dim when the cow is peaking, you see a measurable 8-pound per day loss at peak milk, with those losses persisting through 200 dim. That's the stress reaction being converted directly into lost product.
8 pounds a day is huge, especially at the most profitable part of her cycle.
But the reversal is the money shot. If you trim after 110 dim, you actually see a small but measurable 3-pound per day gain at peak milk because you've allowed her to stabilize. You maintain that production advantage throughout lactation. The net difference is a staggering 11 pounds per day between the two protocols, which translates directly to a $308 per cow per lactation advantage simply by adjusting the timing of routine maintenance.
That is massive. That is almost the entire calculated $337 direct cost of a lameness case, captured just by changing when you schedule the trim. That is one of the cheapest, highest impact operational changes a farm can make immediately.
And the why is critical. It comes down to metabolic stress. Dr. Nigel Cook's research at Wisconsin explains that fresh cows, so cows under 110 DIM, are already in severe negative energy balance. And let's quickly define that for our listeners. Negative energy balance, or NEB, means the cow is using more energy for milk production than she is consuming in her feed, forcing her to mobilize body tissue, her own fat and muscle, to make up the difference. They were routinely mobilizing 75 to 100 pounds of body tissue just to support early lactation production.
So they're already running a dangerous biological deficit, pushing their systems to the absolute limit. They're in a state of high chronic stress.
Exactly. Then you take that cow, put her in a hydraulic or manual chute, and you perform structural trimming. That trimming stress, even if it's done perfectly, is a massive physical and emotional shock. Research shows this single event increases the cow's cortisol levels, the stress hormone, by up to 10-fold. This stress overload further compounds the metabolic challenges she's already facing. It delays her recovery from NEB, and it specifically compromises the quality and production of new hoof horn tissue. This is what costs the 8 pounds a day.
So we're not just talking about minor discomfort. We're talking about actively throwing a cow back into severe physiological distress right at the moment we need her to hit peak production and start cycling again. This stress hangover is what cost the $308.
And the practical case studies are confirming the integrated benefits. The article mentioned a reproduction manager near Kaukauna who decided to link hoof health to reproductive success. They extended their voluntary waiting period, or VWP, which is the time a cow is allowed to recover after calving before they attempt to breed her, from 60 days to 94 days.
So they were specifically avoiding that high-stress early lactation window for both trimming and breeding.
Correct. And the result was phenomenal. First service conception jumped from a struggling 28% to an outstanding 41%. They were trying to manage hoof health, but they captured a massive unexpected boost in reproduction too. All because the cow was metabolically stable and less stressed when she entered the breeding window.
That's integrated system thinking in practice. It proves that timing optimization can sometimes surpass technical perfection. Getting the timing right gives you that significant $308 advantage even before you consider the quality of the trim itself.
Speaking of technique and timing, let's pivot to technology, which is dominating all the trade shows right now. We have automated lameness detection systems, Catalyze, IDA, these vision-based camera systems that analyze gait and mobility scores as cows exit the parlor. And we have to be honest, the technology works. It's highly effective.
Yeah, they claim their AI can identify lameness 23 days before the human eye can visually detect the signs. That kind of speed is a game changer because it feeds right into that $180 a day savings discussion. It eliminates the delay inherent in human observation.
It does. The sources confirm an impressive 81 to 86% agreement with expert veterinary assessments. If you can identify a problem 23 days earlier, you can react immediately, applying that in-house block and saving thousands. But this is where that skepticism needs to kick in. You have to weigh the substantial costs.
And that cost is prohibitive for a lot of operations. We're talking $45,000 to $73,000 for the initial investment, plus another $8,000 to $12,000 in annual subscription fees for the data processing and AI updates. That is a massive capital and operating expenditure.
So, when is technology worth that hefty price tag? The analysis offers some specific criteria. It's ideal for operations that have inherent observation challenges. So those with robotic milking systems where natural human observation points are virtually gone, large facilities, meaning operations consistently larger than 1,500 cows, where visual observation is just impractical scale-wise, or, crucially, herds with a baseline lameness rate above 25%, where you need systematic, unbiased problem identification because your current system is clearly failing.
But here is the critical contrarian take, and this resonates with the average producer, the Marshfield producer example. This farmer ran an 800-cow dairy. He was struggling with a 24% lameness rate, far too high. He reduced that rate dramatically down to 14%, and he achieved that phenomenal drop by investing only $7,200.
That $7,200 was invested solely in upgrading and disciplining his foot bath protocols, switching chemicals, implementing copper sulfate concentrations correctly, and ensuring 100% consistent throughput at the correct intervals. He achieved $20,000 in annual savings through prevention without installing a single camera or sensor.
And that tells you everything you need to know about fundamental deficiencies. For this farmer, the challenge wasn't detecting lame cows. His challenge was preventing them from getting lame in the first place. The conclusion is stark. Technology cannot remediate fundamental management deficiencies. If you don't have consistent foot bath operation, stall maintenance, and basic hygiene locked down, spending $70,000 on a camera system is just digitizing your existing failure. You are wasting money detecting problems you should be preventing.
It's a great warning against chasing shiny objects. Prevention should always come first. The question isn't, can I afford the detection system? The question is, have I wrung every last drop of efficiency out of my $7,000 prevention protocol?
Okay.
Most dairies have not. You know, we constantly track milk production gains, but we rarely talk about the hidden biological cost of that efficiency. The modern 95-pound-a-day Holstein is a biological high-performance machine, and it's fundamentally different from the 65-pound-a-day cow of the 1990s.
It's a Ferrari on a tractor budget. It's constantly running near the red line, metabolically speaking, and that stress has to manifest somewhere.
And the hooves are bearing the brunt of that selection pressure for production. Let's look at the data on the digital cushion, that thick, shock-absorbing fat pad situated beneath the pedal bone in the hoof. That's the cow's natural defense mechanism against hard surfaces. In the 1990s cow, that cushion thinned by about 10 to 12% in early lactation as she mobilized fat reserves. Today, due to the depth and duration of negative energy balance, it thins by 15 to 30%.
So you've got an animal that weighs more, produces far more, and has a physically compromised biological defense mechanism under the pedal bone. The genetic selection for production, which unfortunately has a strong genetic link to digital cushion thickness heritability, is 0.28 to 0.44, has inadvertently engineered a cow with inherently weaker feet. We bred the strength out of the cushion while demanding more from the cow.
Exactly. And the metabolic stress persists longer, too. We defined negative energy balance earlier, and historically, that period of energy deficit lasted 60 to 80 days. Now, it persists 100 to 140 days. That means the cow is biologically vulnerable to stress, inflammation, and compromised tissue regeneration for a much longer period of her lactation cycle.
And this changes everything about recovery and management tolerance. The sources are clear. What took 21 to 28 days for complete healing in 1995 now takes 42 to 56 days for the modern Holstein. And critically, they often achieve only incomplete recovery. This means management tolerance for delays and errors is now zero. Even perfect trimming technique is working against a biologically compromised animal that takes longer to heal.
So what does a successful operation do to manage this biological wall? They integrate their data systems completely. The sources indicate that operations achieving elite 5% lameness rates don't just have good trimmers. They use integrated real-time digital dashboards that connect symptoms to cause almost instantaneously.
Tell me more about this integration,
Okay.
because I see the difference between the typical farm communication and what the sources describe as necessary.
The typical farm communication is slow and siloed. A trimmer comes in, says, "I saw 3 pens with sole ulcers." The vet says, "We need more foot baths." The nutritionist, maybe a week later, asks which TMR was fed to those pens, and everyone agrees to monitor the situation. Nothing changes until the next ulcer outbreak. It's reactive monitoring.
Right, it's too late. The modern cow cannot wait 21 days for recovery. She can't even wait 7 days for a monthly team meeting.
Effective integration is real-time, 48-hour management. When trimmers input their findings, say 3 or more sole ulcers in the same pen, automated alerts immediately notify the herd manager and the nutritionist, possibly via a text message and a dashboard notification. They analyze the specific pen's ration, composition, checking mineral levels, fiber length, or simply slug feeding errors, and correct the nutritional imbalance within 48 hours.
That's the difference. They are linking the physical manifestation, the sole ulcer, which is a symptom of internal biological stress, to the root cause, which is often nutrition or environment, and correcting the entire system before the entire pen develops clinical lameness. This prevents the next cycle of lameness rather than just accelerating the treatment of existing cases. This is not just hoof care, it's preventative metabolic management. Okay, let's get to the toughest truth in this entire analysis. We talked about the potential savings of the in-house component of the hybrid model, but let's be frank about the liability associated with it, which you touched on earlier.
This is the crucial warning that must accompany any plan to move the trimming in-house. If you go the in-house route without adequate professional training, the consequences are disastrous. Operations using inadequately trained in-house trimmers can cause a measurable 50% increase in lameness. That translates, conservatively, to $84,000 in additional annual losses compared to relying on a professional contractor, even with the inherent delays.
That is worse than doing nothing. I remember hiring a young guy once who swore he watched all the training videos. He took so much off one cow's foot trying to fix it that it looked like a sneaker. That single mistake cost me 2 weeks of lost production on that one cow. But the data shows this isn't just an isolated anecdote. It's a systemic $84,000 mistake per year.
And the sources detail exactly why this happens. Critical errors in executing the Dutch 5-step method. For listeners who aren't familiar, the Dutch 5-step method is the globally recognized gold standard for functional hoof trimming. It's not just a guideline, it's structural engineering for the cow's foot, designed to balance weight bearing and prevent sole ulcers. The critical errors often seen include: first, over-trimming below the 5mm safety threshold. The 5mm of sole thickness is absolutely vital. Cutting below that exposes the corium, the highly sensitive tissue that produces the horn, causing immediate trauma and lameness. Second, cutting the toes shorter than 7.5 centimeters, which concentrates pressure precisely where sole ulcers and white line disease develop. And third, creating flat soles instead of a functional concavity. The foot is naturally concave. Making it flat concentrates pressure at the center of the heel and toe, exactly where the biomechanical forces are highest.
Good intentions simply cannot compensate for technical skill deficits when you're dealing with the modern, biologically compromised Holstein foot. Proper training is not a self-taught video series. It requires 3 to 5 days of intensive instruction, usually off-site and certified PLOS, 6 to 12 months of rigorous supervised practice before that trimmer can be allowed to work independently on a high-value asset. That investment of $1,000 to $3,000 per staff member is non-negotiable if you are moving toward a hybrid model.
So we've established that the hybrid model is the most effective approach, provided training is top tier. But how do you ensure the trained coordinator actually executes the protocol day in and day out? This leads us to the ultimate solution: accountability. Specifically, linking compensation directly to measurable lameness outcomes.
This is the winning management formula. It ensures that the person responsible for hoof health has skin in the game. They are financially vested in the outcome, the reduction of lameness, not just the process of trimming the required number of cows.
The Wisconsin operation example cited in the article is the gold standard of this practice. They invested $65,000 in a dedicated Hoof Health Coordinator position. The base salary was perhaps $45,000, which covered their time and commitment, but they offered a $20,000 bonus potential for hitting a challenging but achievable target of 8% lameness.
That is a clear, quantifiable incentive. If lameness is 18%, they might get a small bonus. If they hit 8%, they get the full $20,000. That person now has significant skin in the game. That bonus represents more than just a pat on the back. It's a true financial reward for driving operational efficiency.
And the results were immediate and substantial. They saved $95,000 within 12 months, dropping their lameness from 24% to under 10%. The system drives behavior. The coordinator ensures foot baths are operated precisely on schedule, data entry of mobility scores and trim findings is instantaneous, and early detection moves from a suggestion to a standard operating procedure because it directly affects their paycheck.
It forces the systems integration we talked about in the last segment. This is the difference between hoping for improvement and demanding measurable results. When you calculate the $37,000 to $45,000 first-year investment, which includes the equipment, training, and a bonus structure, it pays for itself within 8 to 12 months. It pays for itself simply by avoiding the $180 a day delay losses and the $84,000 incompetence trap. It is the highest ROI improvement available to dairy operations today.
It is the ultimate synthesis of all the research. Utilize the hybrid model, time your trims correctly after 110 DIM, train your staff impeccably using the Dutch 5-step method, and then put financial accountability behind it. That is the blueprint for competitive success. All right, you just finished morning milking, you're driving to the feed store. We've covered a ton of ground, from the $348,000 competitive opportunity to the $84,000 incompetence trap. What are the 3 things you need to know from this discussion starting right now?
Let's start with the immediate action this week. Number 1, establish your true baseline and costs. Stop guessing your lameness rate. Dedicate a morning to mobility scoring all your cows immediately using a reliable, objective system. Your estimated 10% lameness rate is very likely 22 to 28%. You need a reality check because you can't manage what you don't measure.
And while you're at it, calculate your true cost per case. Stop thinking $337. That's just the direct cost. You must acknowledge the massive cascading reproductive and longevity losses. Start thinking $1,500 or more per case. Your true cost is likely 5x the Wisconsin figure, and understanding that is the necessary motivation for change.
And if you are even considering the in-house or hybrid model, You must secure 1 to 2 hours of protected time daily for the designated trimmer. If management cannot guarantee the time will not be interrupted, do not attempt the in-house component. It will fail due to mismanagement, not poor intentions.
Okay, moving to the medium-term strategy. What needs to happen in the next 3 to 6 months? Number 2, retrain and retime. Invest the necessary $1,000 to $3,000 in staff for professional Dutch 5-step certification. Inadequate training is not a cost saver. It is an $84,000 liability. This is the minimum requirement for a successful hybrid model, and immediately implement a plan for 6 to 12 months of supervised practice afterwards.
And review and adjust your trimming schedules immediately. Start phasing out pre-peak trimming and target cows after 110 days in milk. Even a gradual shift will help you capture that $308 per cow per lactation advantage almost immediately by avoiding metabolic stress at peak lactation. This is pure low-cost profit.
Finally, looking ahead, what's the long-term positioning for the next year or two that secures that competitive edge?
Number 3. Build the hybrid and the paycheck. Transition fully to the hybrid model. This is the sustainable path forward. Use the professional trimmer for scheduled maintenance and expertise, but equip and train your staff for immediate 24-hour response capability. That $62,700 a year cost for 1,500 cows eliminates the risk of those costly month-long delays that plague the pure professional model.
And the final piece of the puzzle, establish the Hoof Health Coordinator role with compensation tied directly to measurable lameness reduction metrics. That initial investment of $37,000 to $45,000 in the first year, including the equipment, certified training, and the bonus structure, pays for itself in 8 to 12 months through captured longevity and production value. This is the single greatest competitive edge you can give your operation right now.
This has been another deep dive from the Bullvine podcast. If this kind of analysis helps your operation, and trust me, understanding the difference between the $337 direct cost and the $348,000 competitive gap is critical, head to www.thebullvine.com for more articles that tell you what's really happening in dairy.
And seriously, subscribe wherever you get your deep dives. We're releasing episodes twice weekly now, and trust me, you don't want to miss what we've got coming next week. We've established today that the widening financial and operational gap in the industry is about management philosophy, not scale. The final lesson here is how smaller integrated operations that meticulously link biology, economics, and accountability are winning the longevity battle against the industry giants. You need to be one of them.